The January 6th investigation. Over the course of 8 public hearings, the House Select Committee has provided the clearest picture yet of Donald Trump's efforts to cling to power and overturn the presidential election. Thursday's hearing presented evidence of Trump's extraordinary inaction as Congress was under attack. Direct testimony of top aides who portrayed Trump as the only person in the White House who didn't want the attack to stop, who didn't want the rioters to go home. A portrait of a president who didn't call any national security or law enforcement officials who could have helped restore order, but a president who, while the assault was still underway, did call Republican senators and made 2 calls to Rudy Giuliani, the lawyer leading the effort to overturn the election. The committee's work has brought public pressure on Attorney General Merrick Garland to step up the criminal investigation, to focus not just on the rioters, but also on Trump's inner circle and Trump himself. At the conclusion of Thursday's hearing, Liz Cheney focused on something beyond the possible legal repercussions, asking fellow Republicans how they could still support Trump after all the committee has uncovered.
Can a president who is willing to make the choices Donald Trump made during the violence of January 6th ever be trusted with any position of authority in our great nation again?
We are joined now by the other Republican on the committee, Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Congressman Kinzinger, let's start with what Liz Cheney said there. Are you seeing any evidence that what you've uncovered in these hearings is having an impact on your Republican colleagues in the House or on Republican voters generally?
Well, on the House, I don't know, because I've been, every day I cease to be amazed at how much they're willing to accept and not say anything. In terms of Republicans in general, you have kind of the bulk of Republican voters. This doesn't appear to be having, a ton of impact. Maybe people are shifting more towards a potential for, a Ron DeSantis. Trumpism isn't dying, even though Trump is becoming irrelevant. What I am hearing a lot of anecdotal stuff around the edges of people who have been, hardcore with Trump that now just can't stand him. It's enough to make a bit of a difference within maybe a GOP primary, but I think on the bigger term, it's denying anywhere near 50% of the American voters willing to basically go along with something like the coup on January 6th. I think, though, long-term, Jonathan, in like 5 years, I still believe it's going to be hard to find somebody that will admit they were ever a Trump supporter, and I think that's where this impact comes in, is future history.
And it's been interesting to hear Merrick Garland as this has unfolded. This week, he was quite emphatic in saying and repeating that no one is above the law. Do you think it is more likely now that we'll actually see something, again, we've never seen in American history, a former president, maybe a presidential candidate again, under being prosecuted by the Justice Department?
It does, look, we have no special indication, obviously, into what DOJ is doing. They're 2 separate investigations, but it does feel like in the last few months, since we've started presenting our evidence, that there is a significant amount more movement in DOJ. I, of course, have to wonder, what were they doing the last year and a half? But, I'm not going to complain, because I think, look, we never want to, and this is important, we never want to get in a position as a country what you see in failed democracies where every last administration is prosecuted. But there is a massive difference between I'm going to prosecute the last administration for political vengeance and not prosecuting an administration that literally attempted a failed coup. That is a precedent I'm way more concerned about, is if there is evidence that this happened from a judicial perspective, if there's the ability to move forward on prosecuting and you don't, you have basically set the floor for future behavior of any president, and I don't think a democracy can survive that. So I certainly hope they're moving forward. I certainly think there's evidence of crimes, and I think it goes all the way up to Donald Trump.
So you hope that there will be a prosecution of Trump himself. You just have to take a step back here. This is a guy who is sounding like he's going to run again, so he would be being prosecuted by the president that he is potentially running against.
Sure. Look, I worry about everything that has happened for the last few years, and really I worry about everything that could happen in the future, and that includes things like, what happens if a president's running for office and he's indicted? How does that feel? But The converse of that is, what happens if we don't do anything? What happens if we look and say, well, he's running again, we're concerned how it's going to look, so that like whole coup attempt thing, let's just put that behind us and hope it never happens again, because it will happen again.
There was an interesting piece on your relationship with Kevin McCarthy in the Washington Post by Paul Kane, and he wrote about the conference call that Republicans had on New Year's Day, just 5 days before the attack on the Capitol. And this is the part that jumped out to me, you describing what you said to Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, you have convinced half of the country that the election was stolen. There's going to be violence. And McCarthy's answer, thanks, Adam. Next caller. Just an extraordinary a moment. Of course, you were turned out, unfortunately, to be right. But let me ask you this. McCarthy clearly didn't believe this stuff. Would it have been different if he had stood up and he had said, no, the election's not stolen, and pushed back on this effort? Or would he have just been pushed aside? Was it too late?
Well, look, it would be so different right now. Would he have been pushed aside in the process? Maybe, but the question is, what are you going to stand for in your life? You know, are you going to go out being known as the guy that enabled a failed coup? Or are you going to be the guy that goes out standing up, right? Goes out saying, I'm going to do what's right. And very likely could have survived this. When he went to Mar-a-Lago, Jonathan, you remember this, like, there was a couple-week period after January 6th where there was, like, almost a standoff among Republicans, like, what do we do? Where do we go from here? The second Kevin McCarthy showed up at Mar-a-Lago taking that picture with Donald Trump, he literally resurrected him politically. He was like an ambulance driver that took those paddles and brought Donald Trump back to life. And the fear that went through the Republican ranks of, oh no, he's back alive again, was palatable. When leaders, you know, when people don't trust somebody, but they only trust a subset of certain leaders, let's say Republican leaders, and Republican leaders don't tell them the truth, they're not going to believe the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, particularly my Republican friends, your leaders, by and large, have been lying to you. They know stuff that's very different than what they're telling you. They know the election wasn't stolen, but they're going to send out fundraising requests. They're going to take your money from you, and they're going to use you to stay in power. You are being abused. You can be mad at Liz Cheney and I. That's fine. We've been taking this for a while. We're not the ones lying to you. It's the people you think are telling you what you want to hear. They're the liars, and Kevin McCarthy is among them.
I want to ask you about the Secret Service. Obviously, we've heard through mostly anonymous sources that they have some issue with Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, and you presented some corroborating evidence. But again, it wasn't direct eyewitness accounts. Why have you not spoken yet to the lead detail who was in that vehicle on January 6th with Donald Trump, or the driver of that vehicle? And is that going to come?
Yeah, that's a question you have to ask the Secret Service. You have to ask those particular people. Look, the committee.
So they're refusing.
Doors wide open.
They're refusing to cooperate because they've put out statements
look,
saying they're more than willing to testify under oath. Are they not?
Yeah, I will tell you this much: the committee. There's always back and forth negotiations. The committee is more than welcome, if they will testify under oath, to throw the doors wide open for them and welcome them at any moment. It is not our decision that they haven't so far. What we have is a very credible witness in Cassidy Hutchinson talk about what she had heard. She's just saying, hey, this is what had been told to me. She did it under oath in front of millions and millions of people. And you hear anonymous sources, some which may actually be the people of interest themselves, coming forward and saying, oh, no, that's not true, but unwilling to do it under oath. Now, this is all a sideshow, the question of what happened in the limo, but it does go to the fact that what Donald Trump and his people do is they try to say somebody begged him for a job, or somebody begged him for an endorsement, or this little part of the story isn't true, to try to discredit a witness, and they're failing at this too. They are flailing around. Cassidy Hutchinson will go down in history as a hero, and she never sought to. She's just a young woman telling the truth with more courage than the vast majority of men in politics today.
And just quickly, we heard audio clips of the Secret Service radio traffic. I mean, that was extraordinary. Is there more of that to come? Do you have access to more of that?
Yeah, we do. I mean, look, we have access to, at least from what we understand, all of it. We understand with the text message situation, you know what's going on there. There's some stuff that we still need to get. So as far as we know, we have everything. We've presented just bits of that. And I think both the report and any future hearings, we can explore in more depth all of that. But I think it's clear that they were very worried for the life of the vice president. And the president of the United States sat in the dining room and said, let's see where this goes. And when he finally realized it wouldn't work, then he gave a mealy-mouthed statement saying, you guys should go home.
And before you go, your reaction to Steve Bannon found guilty?
It's good. I mean, justice, right? We come in, you can plead the fifth if you want in front of our committee, but you can't ignore a congressional subpoena or you'll pay the price. That's to any future witnesses, too.
All right, Adam Kinzinger, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.